Did you know you can search the effects library on the edit page within DaVinci Resolve by simply typing the name of the effect you're looking for? Sounds obvious, but rather than clicking on this handy dandy little magnifying glass to open up the search bar, instead, what you can do is simply click on the category you're looking for, let's go with effects, single click on any effects within the list, and then simply type. So if I type CCTV, we can jump to the CCTV effect. And if we go to video transitions, it works within here as well. There's Shash, which is one of my favorites to say, and it even works with custom transition presets. So if I search for my Alex Burn preset, there it is, and we can apply it by simply double clicking. I've been dragging and dropping my transitions like a fool all these years. Anyway, what up folks, it's Alex here, MrAlexTech, and today we're talking effects library secrets, because there are a few tips and tricks that you need to know when it comes to making use of that effects library on the edit page within DaVinci Resolve. Sponsored by AUDIIO, by the way, who we'll come back to in a moment. Now, I know everyone here knows how to apply an effect. You simply give it a click, drag and drop, right? Yeah, that works. That's how I've been doing it for a long time. But recently I also learned there are other ways. The first way is by simply clicking on a clip on the timeline so it's highlighted in red, like this one is here. Then if we jump over to Open Effects, for example, find the effect that we want, we can simply double click and that effect will be applied to the clip we had selected on the timeline. It doesn't matter where the playhead is. In fact, if we put the playhead all the way over here, when we actually start scrubbing through the effects preview, you can see it showing the preview for the clip we had selected, which is handy. Now, there is an alternative method still, which I really like. Rather than selecting a clip on the timeline, what you want to do is make sure that nothing is selected. So I've got no clips currently selected on the timeline. Instead, simply put your playhead over the clip. Then we can simply go to, let's try effects this time, find an effect, and then we can either click and drag into the preview window here, and then it will be applied. Or once again, we can double click and that effect will be applied to wherever we are on the timeline. Now that's particularly handy if you've got quite a cramped timeline, because trying to click and drag and make sure you put it on the right clip when you can't see the previews is a bit annoying. Now that's applying effects directly to the clips themselves on the timeline, but there is another way, and that's using something called adjustment clips. So adjustment clips come under effects. Right at the very top, you'll see adjustment clip. Now you can double click to add the adjustment clip, but it's kind of broken at the moment because what it does is shifts everything to the right. It kind of inserts it when it should be placed on top. So for the time being, I recommend just dragging and dropping the adjustment clip onto your timeline like so. Now anything that you apply to this adjustment clip will simply affect everything underneath. So if I highlight the adjustment clip, open up the inspector, we can zoom, we can change the position, the pitch, the yaw, the anchor point, the crop, we can add a dynamic zoom, we can change the compositing, all that sort of stuff. And wherever that adjustment clip sits, as you can see, it will affect everything underneath. It's a really nice way of applying different effects to different parts of your timeline. You can also, of course, apply effects. So if we go to Open Effects, for example, let's just grab the mosaic blur, we'll pop that on the adjustment clip. And wherever that adjustment clip is, we'll have the mosaic blur applied. Now, one key benefit of using these adjustment clips is it's easy to lengthen out, so you can put it over multiple clips on the timeline. And it's also dead easy to copy and paste. If you hold the Alt key or Option on a Mac, then you can click and drag to make a duplicate of that adjustment clip, and then you can move that to any other place on the timeline. They're also really quick and easy to make backups of them. So if I grab this adjustment clip, I can put it directly back into my media pool. So then if I delete it from my timeline, I've got this adjustment clip within my media pool. If I give it a click, and then you may need to give it a second click, you can rename it. So this is just called mosaic blur. And then anytime I need that blur, I can just drag it in to put that blur effect on my timeline, which again, super handy. Another major benefit of these adjustment clips is combining them with something called power bins. Power bins are these folders which are shared amongst all of your projects within DaVinci Resolve. To activate your power bins, within your media pool, once again, you click on these three little dots in the top right hand corner, then come down to show power bins, and that will enable these power bins over here. If we just go to the master one, we can right click to make a folder because it pays to stay organized. So let's call this one effects. We'll open that up. And then I can grab this mosaic, drop it in there, and there we go. So any project I now go into, I can jump into my power bin, grab mosaic, put it on my timeline. It's got all of my transforms and my mosaic effect ready to go. Now there's another super handy trick you can do using these power bins. Now I'm actually going to make a dedicated video all about this, but I figured it was worth mentioning in this video as well. So shh, don't tell anyone. But you can create these really handy synced folders within the power bins, which basically means you've got a live folder with loads of your handy resources, which is always there, ready to go. So on my system, I've got a folder called audio, and within there, I've got all of the music and sound effects I like to use. So I'm going to grab that folder, and then I'm going to drag it into my power bin. So now we've got this audio folder over here. If we expand that, I've got sound effects, and I've got music. Now, if I was to head over to audio.com and download some new music, and paste it into that folder, and then in a brand new project, I can go to that music folder, right click, and then come down to resync media files, and any new music I added to that folder, even when DaVinci Resolve was closed, once resynced, will then appear within this bin. Obviously, that's using music and sound effects, but it works with images and videos as well. So you've got this live resource you can always rely on. Obviously, you're going to need a good selection of music and sound effects to fill your new power bin with. Fortunately, that's where this video's sponsor, AUDIIO, comes in. AUDIIO is a music subscription service that has a massive range of music and sound effects for you to use in all of your projects. And it's all real music from real artists, so you'll be sure to find just the right music for your project. And best of all, you can either get the AUDIIO Pro license for just $59 for your first year, which gives you access to their entire music catalog, all of their sound effects, and their awesome AI tools, or you can get lifetime access to their entire music catalog for just a single one-off payment of $199. Simply head over to audio.com, there's a link down in the description below, and use the code ALEX70 to get that AUDIIO Pro license for $59 for your first year, or if it's the lifetime music access you want, use the code ALEX199. Again, all the information is down below. Right, let's jump back to the effects library. Next up, transitions. Now I kind of showed you this at the beginning. You can add transitions by simply double clicking, but there is one other handy thing you need to know. Now this is actually easiest to explain using the cut page. So let me just jump over to the cut page. As we move our playhead towards these edit points here, let's jump over to this one. You see you get this little white icon and it will glow green. Now I don't have to be on that edit point, I just have to be close to it. As I move closer to this edit point here, even though it's on a different track, that little marker will jump to this one, and this one will start to glow green. And once again, let's move all the way over to this one here. Now we've got the marker on this one, and this one will glow green, and again on this one over here. Now that's actually happening on the edit page as well, you just don't get the little marker. But what that means is, if I get somewhat close to this edit point here, and then open up my video transitions, let's just go with the dip to color, we double click, it's going to put that transition on that edit point. If we were to come closer to this little edit point here, same thing, you'll actually know which one you're looking at, because if you do the hover preview within the effects library, you can see it's applying it to that edit point there. And then if we double click, it's going to put that transition on that one. Now, weirdly, that doesn't work for audio transitions, so you can't simply double click on a crossfade to add that directly to your timeline. Fortunately, there are other ways. So you can see we've got this edit point on this music track here, and if we were to go to audio transitions and double click, that wouldn't work. But instead, what we can do is simply right click on that edit point, and then there is an option to add a crossfade, so let's go with 28 frames. And it will just pop that crossfade on there. That also works for these standard video and audio edit points. So if I right click on this one here, I can add a crossfade and it will add that crossfade for both the video and the audio. If we only wanted to add it on the audio, if we hold Alt or Option and then right click, then add the crossfade, we can do it on just the audio there. Another handy trick when it comes to using the transitions is to assign standard transitions, which you can then apply using keyboard shortcuts. So if we just go to my crossfade 0 dB within the effects library, I can right click and I can set as the standard transition. If we go to video transitions, let's just pick something slightly unusual like the heart, right click, set as standard transition. Then if we click on this edit point here, so it's highlighted, you can see I've got both the audio and the video. If I hit Control and T, it will apply my standard transitions. So I've got my heart and then I've got my crossfade. If we give that a click and do Shift and T, it will only apply the standard audio transition, which of course is my crossfade. Or if we do Option and T, it would just apply the video transition, aka my nice fancy heart transition, just like that. Now, super quick bonus transitions tip. I use the push transition all the time because it's super handy for animating in images, titles, and that sort of thing in a pinch. And I also like to set it as a transitions preset, so it's always there, ready to go. So I've got this PNG, and I just want to whip it in and whip it out using a transition. So I'm next to that edit point. I can just double click on push, and it'll drop that in. I can make it the length it needs to be. Let's go with something like that. If we give it a click, let's just change the easing so it's got a nice animation. Let's go with in and out. And then it's simply going to whip in like so. If I want to copy that to the end, if I simply hold Option or Alt, I can click and drag the transition. So now I've got the same thing on the way out. If I right click on that transition, I can create a transitions preset. I'm going to call this Alex Push and then OK. And then let's just get rid of these. If we find the Alex Push within the effects library, which I can do by simply typing it in, right click on Alex Push, and I'm going to set as my standard transition. And then if I simply click on the clip so it's highlighted in red, that's kind of picking up both the start and end edit points. And then if I hit my Option and T or Alt and T, it will add that standard transition to both the start and the end. And it's a super duper quick way of doing your animations on things on the timeline. It's not just transitions that you can copy and paste really quickly as well, because you can copy and paste any of the open effects as well as the fusion effects too. Effects. You can copy all of them. So this clip here has got the mosaic blur, which is an open effects effect, and it's got the comic book effect, which is just one of these standard effects. So if we give that a click and then hit Command and C to do a copy, come over to this clip here and then do an Option or Alt and V, the paste attributes window will appear. Then if we click on this fusion effects, it will copy anything that's within this effects area, which in our case is comic book, but it won't copy the mosaic blur. And if we do Alt or Option and V once again, but this time we tick plugins, plugins is referring to anything within the open effects area, and then apply, that will copy the mosaic blur. Of course, what we could have done is just tick both of them, and it would have brought both of them over at the same time. Now, the next one is using generators. I use generators all the time. I really like the generators, whether it's a solid color or you're using the paper generator just for a bit of a background. They're dead simple generally, but there's one thing I'd like to show you because, again, I only learned it recently and it can be super handy. So if we just open up the generators within the effects library, you can see we've got all of our generators within here. We've got some funky clouds, and then we've got solid colors, paper. There's a nice one called a vintage texture. They're in there. Have a play with them. You can't actually add these by double clicking, so usually what you do is simply click and drag to add onto your timeline. But what you may not know, and I didn't until recently, is if you click these, you can actually drag up to the preview window, and then you get this nice handy insert menu. So rather than just dragging on the timeline, you can choose to insert it, overwrite, replace, fit to fill, place on top, append, or ripple overwrite. So for example, an insert will shift everything to the right and make a gap for that generator. Overwrite will put it in its place. So you can see it's taken up the room, but it's not shifted the entire timeline. Replace will replace that current clip. So my clip is now gone. And instead, in its place, we've got the vintage texture and it's the perfect length. Now, when doing this method, what you do need to do is to make sure you've got your track selected. So see here, I've got this V1, it's got the red box around it. If I was to click on V2, then drag my vintage texture up to do an insert, it would put the vintage texture on track 2 rather than track 1. So I'm going to go with track 1. And a thing I've been using this for recently, which I found really useful, if I just move my video up and then maybe zoom out a little bit because I want this to be on a nice background, I've got my V1 selected, I've got my playhead roughly in the right place, it's just in this gap somewhere. I can grab my vintage texture, drag up, fit to fill, and it'll put that vintage texture to fill in that gap. So now my video is on this background and I haven't had to mess around, making it longer and shorter or whatever to fit the gap. Now, if you don't want to have to keep selecting everything from that menu on the right-hand side, there is a handy trick there as well. If we go to the very top menu within Resolve and click on the words DaVinci Resolve, then come down to Preferences, then go to the User tab, then go to Editing, scroll down, we've got this button here that says Timeline Overlay retains the last performed action, and that's off by default. But if we tick that and then click save, let's get rid of this paper. If we grab paper, drag it up, fit to fill, it's going to fill in that gap. And it's going to remember that we used fit to fill. So now I don't even need to use that menu. I can just grab paper, drop it roughly in the preview screen, and it's going to do fit to fill for me. So it's filled in the gap. If, for instance, the next time I don't want fit to fill, I just drag over, I go, actually, I want to replace this time. Sweet, it's now using replace. It's going to have remembered that I want replace, but if the next time I want fit to fill, we change it to fit to fill, and off you go. Now, all of these options do have an assigned keyboard shortcut as well, if you prefer those. I've listed them on screen for you. So all you need to do, you double click on the generator this time so that it appears kind of permanently within this preview window. Then you can use your keyboard shortcut. So I'll do Shift and F11 and that will do the fit to fill. So now we have our cartoon cloud sky on our timeline. Who knew you could get so fancy applying generators to your timeline? Now, I've got two more quick ones to show you. The first one is kind of relevant. It doesn't quite work in exactly the way you'd expect because there's something missing, which is kind of annoying. But anyway, I'll show you. And it's a really quick way to find certain things on your timeline. And it's called the edit index. So if we click on index in the top left-hand corner here, we get this index. And all this is a list of all the clips on the timeline. So as we click through, it's going to jump to all the different clips. Now this is useful because you can filter this list. If we click on these three dots here, we can come down and say, show me only those clips that have got speed effects, which I don't have any, so I've got no slow motion on this timeline. What about any clips with transform effects? There we go. So these two clips have been transformed. So I can really quickly see the clips that have been transformed. If we go back to this menu and go show clips with filters and go all, it'll show me any clips that have got open effects applied. So open effects are all of these here, things like blurs and the transforms within here, analog damage, all of those sorts of things. So if I drag analog damage on there, this list has now got two clips on there, and we can jump quickly to analog damage or to my mosaic blur. Weirdly, this doesn't work for the standard fusion effects. So anything within this effects area doesn't actually have the option to be shown within here, which is slightly strange. Now, another quick bonus tip. I use this edit index all the time when I'm using chapter screens or titles along my video. So I've got this chapter 1. What I like to do, in the inspector, go to File, and then pick a particular color for this recurring title. So then I can duplicate it across my timeline, like so. And then if I've changed my mind and I actually want to change the font or the color or whatever, it's really easy to jump to all of these different titles because I go index, I click on my three dots, I go show clip colors, I pick lime for this, and then I can use this to jump to all of my lime colored clips, which I've reserved just for this title. So then we can click on each one really quickly without the faff and make any changes. This is a longer video than I intended, but hopefully you're finding it all really useful. My last tip is to get rid of all of that. So if you've applied effects, transforms, whatever, there's a real quick way to get rid of them all. Take this clip here. We've got the mosaic effect on there, we've transformed it, we've cropped it, we've got dynamic zooms, composites, all this sort of stuff. I've got a habit of going through and then resetting all of these things individually. Sometimes what I even do is just delete it from the timeline and start again. But you don't have to do any of that. In the top right hand corner, there's these three little dots. If you give that a click, there's an option to reset video, remove all video effects, remove all audio effects, and remove and reset all. So if I remove and reset all, it'll get rid of the mosaic blur, so we don't have any effects applied, and it'll reset everything on this page back to the default. Much easier. So there you go. There's my effects library secrets. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you to AUDIIO for sponsoring. Maybe consider hitting that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed this video, and leave me any comments, thoughts, feelings, abuse, whatever you want to leave down in the comments section below. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. I'll catch you next time.